The Atlanta Braves have two different directions they can go this offseason, spending $20 million or spending $60 million. Let's talk about what each one of those might look like. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today for Friday, November 29th, your source of news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Crosby Baseball. You can follow the show on Twitter, Braves_today. We have a Facebook page and Instagram as well. You can also find all of my written work. BravesToday.com is the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. And it is Black Friday. I hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving holiday. Tons of food. No real big baseball news happened, which is great. Give us all a chance to unplug. But in the spirit of Black Friday, I want to talk about, like we've discussed on this show, what the offseason might look like if Atlanta is trying to reset the CBT. If Atlanta's trying to confine their spending to about $20 million, and then they would have $2 or $3 million for in-season ads by the trade deadline, because AA always likes to keep some money. So in this episode, let's talk about what does a $20 million offseason look like? What does a $60 million offseason look like? Because if you're trying to spend, or if you're going to spend to the same just under the third tier of the CBT as you did last year, you've got about $60 million to spend. And previous shows last week, 2 weeks ago, we broke down why, like the math behind getting to the 60. We broke down why you might want to go to 20. So you can go back and find those in the feed. But let's look at the $60 million offseason first, because I think we've pretty well established you need 1 to 2 starting pitchers. You need 1 to 2 relievers. You need an outfielder, and you'd like to find an upgrade at shortstop. So what does a realistic $60 million offseason look like for Atlanta? And the couple caveats here of, one, this is a sample offseason. I'm not saying this is the guy you have to sign. I'm also not breaking down exactly what these contracts might be. The whole idea is this should be able to fit into a $60 million bucket, right? We can mix and match some of these names, change out some of these guys, but the idea here is this is a sample of what a $60 million offseason might look like. And for the first one, I think you're getting a starting pitcher, and the goal for Atlanta should be, let's find somebody who we would not be worried or nervous about having start a game 3 in the postseason. Because if there's been one constant for Atlanta the last couple years, it's been you are missing starting pitching when you get to the offseason or to the postseason. No matter how much work they do to skip starts, to give extra rest, by the time they get to October, someone is compromised and they are missing somebody. Whether you had Strider coming off an oblique and Fried having the flu in 22, whether you look at 23 and Morton was unavailable because of the finger strain and Fried came off the IL with the blister, or you look at last year and Sale had the back spasms, Schwellenbach had just thrown, and Morton had also just thrown. And so you were down to like your 6th option and AJ Smith-Shawver for game 1. If you're wanting to add a postseason starter, a guy you can feel like you can slot into your top 3 to 4, and an idea of a guy like that I feel like Atlanta would be interested in is a mid-30s veteran like a Nathan Eovaldi, okay? Formerly of the Boston Red Sox, went 12-8 with a 3.80 ERA last year. The big thing here is the innings. 29 starts, 170 and 2/3 innings. Because if you remember, between Max Fried and Charlie Morton, you're losing over 30-something% of all your starts last year. And you're losing over 300 innings out of your rotation. We don't know when Spencer Strider is going to be back or how effective he'll be. And for everybody saying he's going to be fine, it'll be the first month of the season or so, look at the Walker Buehler situation. He looked like one of the best pitchers in baseball before he had a second Tommy John, and he really struggled in the regular season as he tried to come back from a second Tommy John. I know this was technically a different surgery and repair for Strider, but I think the principle still holds, okay? So, you get a guy like Nathan Eovaldi, his four-seam, splitter, cutter, curve, slider. 5-pitch mix is very much like what Atlanta has been doing. I had this conversation with somebody on social media the other day. It feels like Atlanta's two profiles that they like among their pitchers are either your Strider and your Sale type of, we want you, we don't care if you throw 2 pitches. If they're both really good, throw those 2. Strider obviously is the fastball and the slider. He added a curveball, so added the 3rd pitch. Sale is the fastball and Strider. He has a changeup he throws a little bit. He does a sinker a little bit as well. Or the other profile is, we want you to throw, like, we're fine if you throw 5, 6, 7 pitches, and you can use location and sequencing to keep guys off of this. Nathan Eovaldi fits into that profile. 5-pitch mix. His walk rate last year, 6%, so below MLB average, 81st percentile. He's really good. Guys don't hit his stuff that well, 87%, sorry. Guys try to hit his stuff a lot, 87% chase. Now, he does have a pretty high hard hit rate, 42.6%, but he's also close to 50% at ground balls. So he minimizes the damage because he's keeping the ball down. Again, he hit hard a lot, 17th percentile, 42.6%, but his barrel rate's right there at average at 7.7 because he's not letting guys get the ball in the air. And then the thing that intrigues me about this is the fastball and cutter graded out positively last year, right? 212 off of the batting average off of the 4-seamer. The issue that he has, it's the pitch he throws the least. The slider comes out to a -1 run. Well, breaking pitches in general, it's the curve and the slider together. But his slider, he throws it almost exclusively to righties. So he threw 87 of them, 86 were to righties, 1 was to a lefty. It allows a 462 slug, a 269 batting average against. But the thing that Atlanta is very good at doing is improving guys' sliders. The Braves have been pretty good. They're a gyro slider, a bullet slider kind of team. They're pretty good at improving guys' sliders. Arguably his 2 weakest pitches, the cutter and the slider, they're pretty good at improving sliders. And if you make the slider good enough, you don't necessarily have to use the cutter, or you can tweak the cutter a little bit more. Maybe they turn the cutter into the slider. They turn the cutter into a gyro slider type shape, and they turn the traditional slider into a sweeper, possibly. Would give him something else that would move similar to the curve. It's a 2-plane breaking curve, but would not drop as much. So in a sequencing kind of situation, you do it pretty well. But he's a power guy. He's a 4-seam splitter cutter. 4-seam averages 95 miles an hour. Splitter, year of the splitter, 88 miles an hour. Cutters around 91 or so, all above average velocity-wise for those pitches. So you add Nathan Eovaldi as your starter, your traditional starter that you're bringing in. And then for the purposes of this exercise, and given what the Braves like to do, for both of these, both the traditional offseason or the big offseason and the austerity offseason, I'm going to look at a second reliever that can start for you if you need him to, because that's been what Atlanta's always looked for. Grant Holmes, Ray Kerr, guys that they brought in, they stuck them in the bullpen, and then they would use them as starters to build in extra rest. A long man that can be a starter. The first reliever, though, before I get to that guy, that Atlanta might bring in a traditional $60 million offseason, there's going to be some divided thoughts on this, but bringing back AJ Minter would give you another lefty in your pen, would keep him in Atlanta. Obviously, second-round pick of yours in 2015. You are the only organization he has played for. So bringing back AJ Minter, I think would be pretty well received for the most part. Career 3.28 ERA in Atlanta. You are in a situation where you're going to potentially need a closer after 2025. Yes, he's had that role in the past. Yes, he struggled at times in that role, but this is a different AJ Minter now than it was in 2018, 2019. He got a lot of ancillary save situations last year. It was him and it was Kirby Yates were the two guys that they used in save situations when Iglesias wasn't available. Minter was starting the season as the closer while Iglesias was on the IL, and that kind of struggled a little bit, but he recovered some down the stretch. Ended up with an ERA under 4, but 206 in 2022, 262 last year despite the lowered velocity. That lowered velocity was because of the hip injury. Bringing back AJ Minter gives you another lefty in the pen. You now have Bummer, you have Lee, you have Minter. At some point in time, you'll have Angel Perdomo. I don't know if he's going to start the season in the pen simply because he didn't get into any games last year after recovering from Tommy John. Maybe he's good to go after just a spring training of facing major league hitters. But even then, you don't face a ton of major league hitters after the first couple innings in spring training. So maybe Perdomo's back by then, maybe he's not. But it would give you at least 3 lefties in the pen to start the season with the ability to get more. And we know that Atlanta's struggled when they haven't had lefties in the pen. The other guy that I'm going to bring in as a bullpen option that can also start for you is Spencer Turnbull. Drafted by the Tigers in 2014, played for Philadelphia last year. He is a Southern boy, Demopolis, Alabama, went to the University of Alabama. I'm not going to hold that against him. I'm an Auburn fan. That's why I said that. But last year, 7 starts, 17 games, 3-0, 2.65 ERA. He's mostly been a starter up until last year when Philly's rotation was just so good that they stuck him in the pen. But in his career as a starting pitcher, Spencer Turnbull is 4.28 ERA in 67 games, 336 and 2/3 innings. Some of that is the bad teams that he's been on, right? He was with Detroit during some really rough years. He had an ERA of 4.60 in 2019 and lost an MLB high 17 games. He's not a bad pitcher. He's been on some bad teams. You look at Detroit in 2023, 7.26 ERA. Yeah, but his FIP was 2 runs lower. He's been on some bad teams. I feel like you put him in a situation like this, he can play out of the pen. He can start for you if you need him to. Grant Holmes may be in the rotation to start the season. We don't know. We've had that conversation on the show. I'm fine if he does. Not everybody is. Last year, as a starter for Philly, allowed a 146 batting average in 7 starts, went 2-0 with a 178 ERA. I want to give that a shot in my bullpen and as a spot starter. So my 2 relievers I'm bringing in, I've brought in Nathan Eovaldi. I'm bringing in AJ Minter as a straight reliever. I'm bringing in Spencer Turnbull as a swingman. Okay. Now, outfield, did a whole show on this earlier in the week, right? Maybe it's Michael Conforto. Maybe it's Max Kepler. But Atlanta's looking, supposedly they want a left-handed hitting pitcher, or left-handed hitting outfielder. I don't know why. Feels like you should want a righty here, but whatever. Maybe they're going to do that, whatever. But you bring in one of those outfielders. For this conversation, let's say it's Conforto or Kepler. I don't care which one. You also should have the money to upgrade shortstop. Okay, we're not going to look at Willy Adames. Qualifying offer, Atlanta traditionally has not liked to sign qualifying offer guys. The only one I can think of recently was Will Smith. So, Ha-Sung Kim or Hae-Sung Kim, and let me clarify which one is which. Ha-Sung Kim is the former Padre who can play anywhere in the infield, second base, shortstop, third base, and is expected to not be ready to start the season because of shoulder surgery, but has traditionally been a very strong defender. The other guy, Hae-Sung Kim, is being posted by the Kiwoom heroes of the Korean baseball organization. He actually played with Ha-Sung Kim when Kim was in Korea. So Kim and Kim, that was a double play tandem. He played second. Ha-Sung Kim played short. He's also played shortstop. He can play shortstop at an above average level. He just played second base in deference to the other Kim. He is one of those guys, not a ton of power. The profile of a lot of those Korean players, not a ton of power. But the last 4 seasons in the KBO, he's hit over 300, an on base of at least 372.
Why do you like him?
Because he gets on base.
He gets on base. And we've talked about this Braves team. You have enough power hitters. What you need are guys that can get on base. We don't need Orlando Arcia to hit 25 home runs. We need Orlando Arcia to get on freaking base so that everybody else can hit a home run and bring him in. Kim, plenty of speed, 26 doubles, 4 triples. He's also stolen a lot. 135 bases and 155 attempts in the last 4 seasons. So 87% success rate. He would probably be the second best base stealer on the team behind Ronald Acuna Jr. on day 1. Strikeout rate has gone down each season, 10.9% last year. It's going to go up in MLB. He's going to have to adjust, but he gives you an option that can play shortstop. Should be better offensively than Orlando Arcia. And now you've also upgraded your bench because Arcia is now probably the best, one of the best qualified backup infielders in the league. So there you go. $60 million offseason. Nathan Eovaldi, AJ Minter, Spencer Turnbull, Michael Conforto or Max Kepler, and Ha-Sung Kim for shortstop. In just a minute, let's talk about what an austerity offseason might like. If you're looking for Black Friday bargains, how could Atlanta fill as many holes as possible and spend no more than $20 million? We'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsay Crosby talking about how the Atlanta Braves could structure their offseason in a big offseason and an austerity offseason. And we just covered the $60 million offseason. Let's look at the $20 million offseason. And a reminder, the reason the Braves would be doing this would be trying to reset the luxury tax, right? Get a year where you stay below the CBT so that the penalties go back down. Because it's 20% the first year. I want to say it's 30 and then 50% as you exceed the CBT in multiple years. So this would be a situation where you would reset it back to the lower tier and have money to spend next offseason to go out and get back into free agency, and extensions and trades and all that stuff. I'm not going to do this with any trades. There's tons of options you could do for trades. We've heard about trying to get Jordan Montgomery from the Diamondbacks and have them eat most of the deal and things like that. I'm not going to really go into trade. This is free agency only. And again, just like the other one, this is an example. Here is what they could potentially do. This is not, these are the guys they should sign, but it's an example of what they might try to do. For starting pitcher, this is where it's really tough. Because the way that I see Atlanta, if they can't get a guy like Walker Buehler to take a really small deal under $10 million, I feel like that's your only real big spend is starter. Of the $20 million, you're probably spending up to $10 million on that one guy, $8 to $10 million. And if they can't get Walker Buehler to take $8 to $10 million, then you're just going around to a bunch of old veterans and seeing who will take $8 to $10 million to sign with you. Maybe it's Charlie Morton coming back for $8 million. Maybe it's, you look at Anthony DeScalfini, Wade Miley. Andrew Heaney would be a little bit of a better option, but Max Scherzer. It could be you just go around a bunch of old veterans and you try to offer somebody $8 million to come be a starter for you. With the goal of he's a back-end guy, he's a number 5, he probably won't even make the postseason roster or he'll move to the pen. But we just need a guy who can go out there and take 5 or 6 innings every 5th day or 6th day. Not exciting, but that's your thing. Similar to the $60 million offseason, I'm going to do 2 relievers. One is a straight reliever, and one is a guy that can maybe be a swingman for you because, again, this team has been pretty aggressive at trying to do those. My reliever, also going to be a lefty. I'm looking at Hobie Milner, formerly of the Milwaukee Brewers. He went 5-1 with a 4.73 ERA last year in 61 appearances, 64 and 2/3 innings. He was dealing with some stuff, but he also was exceptionally unlucky. Okay? So Hobie Milner in 2022, 3.76 ERA. In 2023, 1.82 ERA. 2024, 4.73. His fielding independent pitching in every season of those three was between 316 and 313. He provided essentially the exact same inputs for 3 straight years and got 3 wildly different ERAs. But the worst of the ERAs was the last one at 4.73. This is a situation where he can absolutely contribute. Expected ERA was also 3.24. His barrel rate was only 2.7% allowed, virtually elite. He barely walked anybody, just over 5% walk rate. He was very good. I honestly was shocked that the Brewers did not keep him. He'll turn 34 in January, but a lefty who he's not throwing super hard. He's a sweeper, sinker, forcing changeup guy. But he gives you another lefty out of the pen. It's a similar kind of profile to Aaron Bummer as far as a guy that's one of the best in baseball at getting ground balls, almost never allows barrels. There's a lot to like about Hobie Milner, and you should be able to get him pretty cheaply. The other reliever, one that could potentially start for you if you can fix whatever issues he was facing last year, and I wrote about this, I think, last week in the newsletter, Michael Soroka. A lot of Braves fans were not thrilled when he was traded. There was a lot of reasons they had to trade him. He was out of options. He could have, if you tried to sit him down, he could have elected free agency, all kind of stuff. And he was awful as a starter last year. Okay? Dreadful as a starter. 6.39 ERA, 0-5 in 9 starts. As a reliever, 2.75 ERA. And when he came back from injury at the end of the year, in September, he had 3 relief appearances combined for 7 1/3 innings, 2 hits, no runs, 2 walks to 13 strikeouts. He figured out something in the bullpen. He figured it out. Again, I wrote this whole thing up a week or two ago on BravesToday.com, so go back and go find it if you want to see more about Michael Soroka and how he reinvented himself in the bullpen. But he would be an affordable option, I think, to bring back in as a reliever. We know he can work as a reliever. And then if you can get him back to the form, like, you have to remember the Michael Soroka that we saw prior to all of these injuries. Runner-up for Rookie of the Year in 2019, 13-4 with a 2.68 ERA in 29 starts. All-Star, 6th place finisher in Cy Young as a rookie. If you can get 85 or 90% of that guy, then you could have a dude. So you could go get Michael Soroka on a cheap deal. For your outfield, you're finding, similar to pitcher, you're finding a veteran, you're finding an older veteran that can come in and can platoon with a couple guys and be your fourth otherwise. David Peralta is a guy that stands out to me. 91 games last year for San Diego. He was behind a really good starting 3, so he didn't play a lot. But batted .267, put up a .335 on base, which we like that.
Why do you like him?
Because he gets on base.
Only hit 8 homers, stole 2 bases, but David Peralta is, I think, at best what you were wanting Adam Duvall to be. A guy that would not kill you defensively, that was able to come up with some clutch hits, could hold his own at the plate. He's going to bat 7th or 8th or 9th, but he gives you competence. And I think that was what you were really looking for from Adam Duvall, and he just never got going. You'd have to hope that David Peralta was not also hit by Father Time like Adam Duvall was. There's other options here, right? There's other options for veteran, affordable outfielders. Tommy Pham is somehow like drinking from the fountain of youth, right? There's other options out there. And then if you wanted to address shortstop and at the same time upgrade your depth on your bench, maybe Nick Allen was that guy already, but you could sign a veteran like a Paul DeJong, okay? Batted .227 last year for the Royals, so did not light the world on fire. Plus defender, did hit 24 homers for the Royals. There's some pop in there. He had a 69th percentile barrel rate at 10.2%. He did still chase a bit. He is, in essence, the Orlando Arcia profile, right? But you can see how Truist would maybe do him a little better than playing in Kansas City. I think the expected home runs come out to be a little bit better in Atlanta maybe than they would have been in Kansas City. But he would give you an option, a guy that could also cover third base, second base if there was an injury. The upside is maybe a little better than Orlando Arcia. Arcia is probably still the starter, but if Arcia or Ozzie go down, which again, based on the fact it's an odd year, I don't expect Ozzie to get hurt, but you never know. Paul DeJong would be able to give you maybe a little bit better than Nick Allen would. He shouldn't be incredibly expensive. Again, this is a one-year fix under an austerity kind of winter to reset the CBT and come back into it and come back into spending after 2025, next winter, spending a little bit more money. So this would be, again, your starting pitcher is going to be, if you can't get Walker Buehler for less than $10 million, then your starting pitcher is going to be some older veteran, a Max Scherzer, and then a Discalfini, maybe a Charlie Morton's coming back, something like that. Your bullpen, Hobie Milner, Michael Soroka are your two relievers, and they're going to check to see if they can get Soroka back into a starting role where he could do a spot start here and there like Grant Holmes did last year. Your outfielder, a veteran like David Peralta or Tommy Pham, and then your shortstop, maybe you already have that guy in Nick Allen, maybe it's a guy like Paul DeJong. If you have different ideas for who these guys should be in the $60 million offseason and the $20 million offseason, I want to hear from you. If you're on YouTube, leave a comment down below. While you're there, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when we drop a new episode. If you're on audio, I'm on Twitter and Blue Sky at Crosby Baseball. You can always email us, contact@bravestoday.com. Tons of ways to get those to us. But while you're on audio, do us a favor, leave us a 5-star review with some kind words for the show so we can help other people discover Braves Today. Until next time, we'll see you on Monday. This has been Braves Today.